Those aren't cargo, those are humans. The exclamation came from Vogue, a burly, scale-covered Brarian pirate whose 3 eyes widened in something dangerously close to fear. The crew of the Starflare froze at their posts, staring at the freighter on the view screen. It was an unassuming, blocky vessel marked with Earth insignias, drifting into the fringe systems far from its usual routes. Easy prey, or so they thought. Captain Korvac, seated on his throne carved from bone, clicked his mandibles together in irritation. Humans, you say? And what of it, Vogue? They're soft, squishy, and barely worth mentioning. A few plasma rifles and they'll fold faster than a cack sandstorm. Vogue, typically the first to charge into battle, seemed unconvinced. He hesitated, his claws twitching as he glanced uneasily at the screen. It's not the humans themselves, Captain, he muttered. It's what they do. Korvac exhaled sharply through his spiracles, frustration evident in his posture. Speak plainly, Vogue. They don't react like other species, Vogue explained, gesturing animatedly at the screen. Hit a Vran freighter and they beg. Raid a claw ship and they surrender. But humans, he pointed at the screen again. They set their own ships on fire if it means taking you down with them. A murmur of unease rippled through the bridge. Korvac leaned forward, mandibles clicking thoughtfully. You're telling me these soft, squishy mammals are a threat? Vogue nodded grimly. I've seen it, Captain. There was a pirate from the Zerth clans who raided a human colony transport. It was full of, what do they call them? Engineers. By the time the Zerth breached the hull, the humans had rigged the reactors to overload. Everyone went up in a fireball the size of a moon. Not a single human survived, but neither did the Zerth crew. An isolated incident, Korvac growled. You're suggesting the mighty Starflare should fear some hairless apes. They're not just hairless apes, muttered Dra, the ship's weapons officer, his snout twitching in discomfort. Korvac shot Dra a sharp look. Clever. So are the Rinks, and we gutted their fleets in 3 solar cycles. This is different, Dra replied, his claws nervously tapping the console. Humans don't play by the rules, Captain. Raid most species and they panic, flee, or surrender. Humans don't. They improvise, and sometimes their improvisation is worse than our plans. Korvac let out a harsh laugh. You're afraid of primitive ingenuity? That's rich. Bring us within range, and let's see how these improvisers handle superior firepower. The crew hesitated but obeyed, and the Starflare surged forward, closing the gap to the human freighter. On the view screen, the ship loomed closer, its dull gray hull, unremarkable except for the faded blue and white emblem of the United Terran Alliance. Scan the vessel, Korvac ordered. Dra hesitated, claws hovering over the controls. I don't think we should. Do it, Korvac snapped. Reluctantly, Dra activated the scanner. Moments later, his ears flattened against his head. Captain, you're going to want to see this. Korvac rose, his towering frame casting shadows across the bridge as he approached the console. The scan showed typical supplies and fuel reserves, but one cargo bay emitted a strange energy signature. What is that? Korvac narrowed his eyes. Dra hesitated. It's emitting low-level radiation, but it doesn't match any known weapon or power source. Experimental tech, maybe Vogue suggested. Humans are always tinkering with dangerous things. Good, Korvac said, a savage grin spreading across his face. Prepare a boarding party. Let's see what shiny toys the humans have left behind. The boarding pods launched, clamping onto the freighter. The crew muttered uneasily, their reluctance palpable, but Korvac ignored it. Fear had its uses, but he wouldn't let it paralyze them. The boarding team's feed flickered onto a secondary screen. The corridors of the freighter were dim and eerily silent, with no sign of life save for the hum of engines. Captain, came the voice of Wack, the boarding leader. The place is empty. No crew, no resistance. just cargo. Secure it and return, Korvac ordered. Wait, Wack added hesitantly. The energy signature, it's coming from a sealed container in Cargo Bay 3. It's locked and covered in warning labels written in Terran Standard. Can you read them, Korvac asked. Some of it, Wack replied. It says, do not expose to oxygen. Extreme caution. Volatile contents should we open it. Korvac hesitated. Humans were known for their peculiar humor. For all he knew, the warnings could be a bluff. Open it, he commanded. The feed went silent, save for the clatter of machinery breaching the container. Then the screen erupted in static, followed by screams. Vogue flinched. What's happening down there? Korvac growled, his mandibles tightening as he stared at the flickering feed. Shadows danced erratically across the screen, accompanied by flashes of light, crackling weapons fire, and a deep, guttural growl that sent a shiver through the bridge crew. The screaming didn't stop. Rock Korvac barked into the comm. Report. Only static answered him, followed by a chilling silence. Then, suddenly, a voice crackled through the speakers, not Rock's but human. Calm, cheerful, and unnervingly confident. Thanks for the ride, it said. We'll be taking your ship now. Korvac froze, claws digging into his throne's armrests. The bridge fell silent as the crew exchanged uneasy glances. Pirates were predators, not prey, and this reversal was unnerving. Identify yourself, Korvac demanded, his voice booming. Who are you, and how did you access our systems? Who am I? The human replied, almost amused. Just a technician, or I was until now. Thanks to you, I've got a new job, ship acquisition specialist. My first task, securing your vessel. Dra glanced nervously at his console. Captain, he said, voice shaky, they've overridden our external comms. They're patching into our internal systems now. I can't lock them out. Impossible, Korvac snarled, storming to Dre's station. His claws flew across the controls, but Dra was right. The human had full access. Suddenly, alarms blared. Life support systems fluctuated, lights flickered, and gravity wavered. How is this happening? Vogue growled, gripping his station for balance. They don't even have access to our systems. The human's voice returned, now echoing from every speaker on the bridge. You left your boarding pods connected, didn't you? Thanks for the back door. You really should encrypt those ports. Sloppy work for a crew that calls itself ruthless. Korvac's mandibles clicked furiously. You think parlor tricks will save you? We'll tear your ship apart and drag you out piece by piece. The voice chuckled, calm and infuriating. Oh, you'll have to deal with the little gift we left in Cargo Bay 3 first. Ever heard of a tan tactical decoy? Well, you'll see soon enough. As if on cue, the star flare shuddered. The screen switched to a feed from the lower decks, where shadowy shapes darted through the halls, fast and erratic, metallic limbs glinting. Captain Dra said, voice trembling, the energy signature from the freighter, it's spreading. Spreading, Korvac snapped. What do you mean, spreading? Dra pointed to a schematic showing red zones spreading rapidly from the boarding docks. Whatever was in that container, it's loose, and it's moving through the ship. The human's voice chimed in again, taunting. Those friends of yours, we call them Autonomous Defense Units, or ADUs. Designed for hostile environments, they're quite adaptable. Let's see how your crew holds up. Panic erupted on the bridge as Korvac bellowed, seal off the lower decks. Contain the breach. Get a security team down there now. But the boarding crew Vogue began. Forget them, Korvac roared. They're already dead. The words hung heavy in the air as the crew scrambled to follow his orders. On the screen, the ADU's spider-like machines bristling with tools and weapons skittered across walls and ceilings. Their glowing red sensors scanned for targets and the pirates who encountered them stood no chance. Razor-sharp appendages and energy blasts cut through them with relentless efficiency. "What kind of madness is this?" Dra muttered, horrified. "Human madness," Vogue replied grimly. "They'd rather destroy their ship than let it fall into enemy hands." "No," Korvac growled, his voice cold. "This isn't destruction, it's conquest. They're taking our ship." The crew froze as the realization hit. The ADOS weren't rampaging, they were systematically dismantling the Starflare's defenses. The pirates' attempts to fight back were futile. Plasma rifles barely scratched the ADOS armor, and their speed made targeting impossible. Captain Dra said, voice trembling, "We have another problem." "What now?" Korvac snarled. "The freighter, it's moving," Dra replied, pointing at the view screen. Sure enough, the human freighter, which had seemed so helpless moments ago, was now powering up its engines. With the Starflare in chaos no one had noticed, the freighter accelerated away, leaving the pirate vessel adrift, its unwelcome passengers wreaking havoc. "Do we pursue?" Vogue asked, though his tone betrayed a plea for retreat. "Pursue?" Korvac spat, gesturing at the chaos on the screens. "We can barely hold our own ship together." "We can't even control our own ship," Korvac muttered through clenched mandibles. The human's voice returned, smug and casual. "You might want to reconsider that pursuit. We left you a little parting gift. Don't worry, it's only active as long as you stay in one piece." "What gift?" Korvac demanded, though a sinking feeling told him he wouldn't like the answer. "Just some insurance," the voice replied. "A timed reactor destabilizer. Nothing major. You've got about 20 minutes, plenty of time to say your goodbyes." The line went dead. Korvac stared at the blank view screen, disbelief and fury battling for control. Around him, the crew looked on, hoping for orders, but for the first time in his career, Korvac had none. "Get me engineering," he barked. "And find a way to get those things off my ship." Alarms blared, the ADOS advanced, and the clock ticked down. Korvac couldn't help but think the legends about humans hadn't gone far enough. They weren't just dangerous, they were terrifying. "Vogue," Korvac snapped. "Status on the lower decks." "Completely lost," Vogue replied, claws trembling over his console. "The ADOS have taken control of the power relays and are sealing us out section by section. They've already isolated engineering." Korvac slammed his fist onto his throne, cracking its carved surface. "Dra, I need solutions. Now." Dra hesitated, his snout twitching nervously. "Captain, the only solution is to abandon ship. We can't disarm the destabilizer without engineering access, and those machines won't let us through." "Abandon my ship?" Korvac hissed, mandibles flaring. "Do you think the Starflare's some scavenger junker?" "If we stay, we die," Dra said bluntly. "Fighting them is suicide." The words burned in Korvac's chest, but the truth was undeniable. The humans had outmaneuvered him at every step. He would have his revenge, but survival came first. "Fine," he growled. "Begin evacuation procedures. Prioritize the command crew and key personnel. Seal the bridge to buy us time." The crew moved quickly, tension thick in the air. Pirates who had faced countless battles now scrambled to escape their own ship. The ADOS weren't just enemies, they were an unstoppable force, systematically dismantling the Starflare's defenses. As the evacuation pods were readied, Korvac watched the screens. The ADOS had reached the reactor core, their red optics scanning the critical systems. The destabilizer countdown continued mercilessly. 10 minutes left. Captain Vogue said hesitantly, "The pods are ready. We need to go." Korvac stared at the screen, his pride warring with survival instincts. At last he turned with a snarl. "Get us off this cursed ship." The bridge crew filed into the pods, their usual bravado replaced with grim silence. As the pods launched into the void, Korvac watched the Starflare grow smaller, the Adu's glowing optics visible even from afar. Moments later, a brilliant explosion lit the darkness, consuming the ship in a chain reaction. Korvac shielded his eyes from the flash, his mandibles grinding in fury. The humans had humiliated him, destroyed his ship, and shattered his crew's reputation. But one thing was certain: he had underestimated the hairless apes. He would not make that mistake again. Floating in the silence of space, surrounded by his battered crew, Korvac's claws dug into his seat. "Spread the word," he growled to no one in particular. "No one touches human supply lines again. Let them keep their cursed ingenuity, but mark my words, this isn't over."